Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, I have another special guest for you, a recent graduate from my podcast in a weekend class, and I'm excited to introduce you to her because she's doing amazing, amazing things, and I cannot wait for you to hear her story. Before we get there, though, if this is your first time tuning in live, catching the replay, or listening over on the podcast, welcome. I am so glad you've found us. And if you're a returning viewer or listener, I'm so glad you're back for an amazing interview today. If we haven't met, my name is Young Pratt. I'm a 17-year performing arts studio owner turned chief dreamer and podcaster right here at Our Young Creators. And today we have the lovely Tasha Cole, also known as TCKnows. And we're going to hear the story about her newest podcast, Break the Cycle. Tasha, I am so glad you are here today.
Thank you so much, Young. I am so glad you asked me to do this interview. I am so excited. I could just scream, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Maybe on one of your lives later, right? You can get on and jump up and down and do your screaming.
Absolutely.
So I would love for you to give us a little bit of a backstory. What was your life before the podcast? Like what did it look like? What were you doing? And now what do you want to do with this podcast?
Well, my life before the podcast was very interesting. I was a licensed life insurance producer in North Carolina and also in Maryland. I'm a licensed minister, a mother, a wife, a daughter, so on and so on. I figured that my life would be better. I wanted it to be better than it, is and was. And so I decided, because of my life took a hit the early part of this year, that I wanted to cry, Young. I really wanted to cry, but it's like the tears welled up in my eyes, and it's like the tears just wouldn't fall, and my eyes dried up. So after that hit came, I asked myself, what next? Mm-hmm. What am I going to do? Am I going to still be a life insurance agent? Am I still, of course, I'm going to be a minister until God calls me home. But what am I going to do next? So I just had events that took place, but I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't paying attention to those events that were happening in my life. It's like I was shrugging them off, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do that, or nah, I can't do that, or nah, I need to be in this place, or I need to be this person, or I need to have this much money to even do that. So I just was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I just, have you ever had this nudge in your belly, in your spirit, where you just like, okay, maybe I need to do this because I'm getting all of these confirmations and things are just happening. So after having these confirmations and having people say to me, you are a good speaker, or you need to share this stuff with people and they need to hear this because you're young, but you don't talk like you're young. And I was like, well, I took it as a compliment.
As you should.
But, yes. So after really understanding, when the Holy Spirit let me know to go live, and I went live a couple of times, maybe a year or two ago, but I was like, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want people to see me. I don't want my family to know I'm doing this. I don't want to tell my business. I don't want people to know I was going through this or going through that, because people think that when you're a minister or they see that your life is looking kind of good, they think, oh, they don't go through nothing. Well, yes, we do. And yes, I did. So finally, I just took a leap. I took a leap, and I was nudged again by Facebook friends, and I was inspired to do this podcast. And it was like, oh, this should be a podcast, because I was coming on live every day, Monday through Friday, and just sharing my experiences and just talking. So eventually here I am.
What an amazing journey. And I'm so grateful that you listened to those nudges, because sometimes I know I've done this. I've gotten a nudge and I'm totally fearful of what that thing is. So I'll go in the opposite direction and then I'll eventually find my way back. Had I listened to those nudges, whenever I go against them, it is definitely never a great thing. So I am so grateful that the nudges and you were pushed by people in your community online that said, you know what, you have a gift, you have a story to share, and now you get to be the person who can walk alongside other people who are maybe at a crossroads in their lives where they're needing to break some sort of cycle. And there's lots of different cycles that can be broken. Can you tell me, with this podcast, what cycle are you breaking in your life?
Well, one, and this is very simple. Some people might say, well, that's not so bad. And it's not when you look at it in a different perspective. But one cycle that I am breaking is my comfort zone. When you stay in your comfort zone so long, you get complacent and then you're satisfied and then you just stay there. So you stop, you don't grow, nothing happens, nothing is moving. So that's one cycle that I am breaking now, is continuously keeping myself in an uncomfortable zone. So that way I can continue to grow and continue to learn more about who Tasha is.
And that's such a gift you're giving to everybody too, because you do have so many amazing stories and so much wisdom to share with everybody. So I want to commend you, first of all, for breaking this cycle of comfort, because I feel so many people in our lives, I was there too, where you're happy with what's going on. You don't want to do anything new because why rock the boat? Sometimes, though, as we both know, when you're getting really pushed, and I've been doing a lot of pushing of you lately too, and you've been letting me do that because you have so much inside of you that people need to see, and they need to understand it, and really be able to have you guide them with the guests you bring on and with your stories about different ways in which they can take control of their lives. They can break out of their comfort zone, for one, and then start looking at some of the other cycles that may be going on that could be detrimental to them, getting them to face that fear, giving them a little nudge with your podcast, and helping them get to that next level.
Absolutely. And Young, the one thing that I didn't realize until just now with you asking me this question, how is the podcast, what is it that you're going to do with this podcast? And eventually, well, I'll say this. I thought that it would be a plethora of topics or a plethora of situations that I could talk about. But right now at this point, just saying, breaking the cycle of not staying in a comfort zone is something that I would definitely talk more about, help people to understand, because I'm still understanding this comfort zone. I'm still understanding that when you stay in it, you don't move. You stay right there. And it's not easy. Some people say, yeah, it's easy to stay where you are. No, it's not. It's not easy to stay there because now you're, like you said, it can be detrimental to you, to the person. So I want to help in that way.
Yeah, and I think you're poised to do that, because even in the short time that we've known each other, I've seen you break through so many barriers of fear, keep leaning into this fear and going for that next thing. So I know this is just the beginning of your amazing journey as a speaker and as a podcaster. And Angie, who's joining us live, she says, just okay is no way to live. Amen, sister.
Yes.
And then Sarah says, if you're not uncomfortable, you may not be growing like you want. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I know this podcast for you was completely out of your comfort zone. We had a mutual friend who said, you better do this because you have a story to tell and gifts to share. So, here we are pushing you. And I love that. And it just really shows that In our lives, we need people who are going to stand beside us, yes, but we
Yes.
also need those people who are going to stand behind us to push
Yes.
us closer to the things they see that we can do that sometimes we're not even able to see yet.
Absolutely. And you know what, Young, that I'm realizing now is that I'm a raw onion. I'm that raw onion that you peeling it, you've taken off the first layer, so the scent that comes from it is not as strong. But as the more layers you
Mhm.
peel off, the stronger the scent is, or the stronger the situation is, the stronger it is that you have to fight through. You have to keep yourself in a position where, okay, here's the next layer. Am I going to leave that layer on, or am I going to peel it? Or is somebody there to
Mhm.
help me to peel it?
Yes.
So you were that pillar for me. Kim White, our mutual friend, she is that pillar for me. So I believe that if she hadn't talked to me, I wouldn't be doing no podcast. If I hadn't got those nudges from my other Facebook friends, I wouldn't have done this podcast. I wouldn't have done it.
Well, I'm so happy to be one of those people who can peel back another layer because there's so much goodness inside of you. And I just think everyone needs to witness it and see what it is because it's magic.
Wow.
I would love to know when you were envisioning this podcast, who were you creating it for? Was there a specific type of person? Was it more general? Tell us who it's for.
It's for individuals that don't mind digging deep to come
Mm.
off the surface. I spent a lot of my life on the surface. And I noticed that on the surface, you get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You only get surface stuff. But when you dig deep, then you get all of what's there, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for those individuals that want to see transformation, not just change, but transformation. Because you're no longer, once you come from being that caterpillar to a butterfly, you can't go back to being a caterpillar once you become a butterfly. So that's where the transformation come in at. So that's who this podcast is for. It's for those individuals.
And that is so beautiful that you're digging up to the surface, and once you're out, yeah, there's no stuffing you back in the ground. You're out, you've spread your wings, and you're here to stay. And again, this is just the beginning of your amazing journey as this beautiful butterfly, helping people around the globe to break cycles so they can have transformation, so they can live and be the people that they were meant to be on this planet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you who is not for. It's not for the faint of heart. You you cannot say, I want to change, I want to transform, but don't want to do the work. That was me too. That was once me.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I was a big talker, you know, oh, I can do this, oh, I can do that. But I didn't, when it come time to do the work, to dig deep, I got scared, ran away, didn't want to do it. I would start it and then stop. When something got hard, I would run away. So this podcast is not for those people.
And I can totally relate to that person as well because at different points in my life, I was that person where I had these big goals and dreams and aspirations. And when it got to doing the really scary work, I sometimes would say, I'm just not ready and go around the other way. And for me, live video was one of those scary things that I walked away from in the very early years of my podcasting journey because I wasn't ready. However, I have to say everything happens for a reason, and mentors come into our lives to help us with the skills that we're lacking. And so my amazing coach Glitter, Tiffany Lee Bymaster, definitely has been someone who's helped me on my own journey of this transformation. So I love that you're embracing all of these different things, saying, you know what, if you're not ready to change, this is not for you. If you're just a talker and you're not a doer, this is not for you. And I love that you're very, very clear about that because sometimes when we create these new things in our lives, we never stop to consider who things are not for. We only think about it in terms of who we want it, who we want to attract, not who we don't want to attract. So thank you for really setting the record straight and saying, you know what, I'm raw, I'm real, and if you're going to come listen, you're going to get all of me.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned Coach Glitter, because she was actually a part of the journey in the beginning, because I didn't know anything about her. And when that hard hit to my life happened, it's like she showed up in the news feed with her live Facebook challenge, and I was like, okay, I need to do this. This is something I need to do. And now I'm taking it again. This is my second go round. So she's helping me too, with these lives and coming on and talking and being more confident and seeing the greatness that's already there that I didn't even see.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So much goodness here. I would love for you to share when your podcast goes live.
The podcast will go live every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Just in time for the weekend, so you can really dive into those transformations. You can really dive into some good, deep soul work that needs to happen sometimes. Amazing. And where can people listen to the podcast?
They can listen on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Google Play Music, wherever podcasts are played, they can hear me.
So if you're watching live or listening on the podcast, whatever your favorite podcast player is, Tasha's right there with you to be in your ears when you need her most, because sometimes it's the simple things like hearing someone's story, hearing someone's transformation, hearing that someone overcame a challenge. That's enough sometimes to push us all to that next level. So I would say run, don't walk to iTunes and subscribe to her podcast. Help her get into the coveted, new, and noteworthy section. It's a really important thing for podcasters to be able to do in the early days. So definitely, if you would help me, help Tasha get into that new and noteworthy, that would be an amazing accomplishment for her. Now, until they get the podcast on their phones, where can they connect with you online, Tasha?
They can connect with me on Facebook at TCKnows brand, and also on Instagram at _TCKnows.
Fantastic. And Tasha, as soon as we wrap up, I invite you to come back into this video, pop all your links to your iTunes podcast there and all the places people can connect with you, because I know after hearing you on this interview, they're going to want to know more. And I want to make sure that we get them to the right place.
Absolutely. They can also actually catch me on Patreon. Patreon.com, /TCKnows. That's something that you pushed me towards. You gave me a little nudge towards that.
I love it, because you needed to be there. So I'm always here to push you to the next thing, Tasha, just so you know.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you so much.
Before we wrap up and say our goodbyes, is there one parting piece of advice you can give to somebody who is watching live, the replay, or the podcast about maybe they're in a cycle, maybe they've noticed a cycle in their lives? What would be your words of encouragement on how to break that cycle?
Don't think, just jump. It's a leap of faith. Lean into the fear.
Amazing. That's such great advice. Kelly, the name of the podcast is Break the Cycle with TC Knows, and she'll come back in here and pop all the links in so you can get some more goodness from Tasha, because everybody could use a little more Tasha in their lives.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, my friends, I am so glad you have tuned in to listen to this amazing woman share her story about the cycle that she's broken in her life and how she's helping other people now break their own cycles to get closer to the greatness that lives in us all. I'm Young Pratt, Chief Dreamer and Podcaster right here at Our Young Creators, and I've just had an amazing interview with the lovely Tasha Cole, aka TC Knows. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers.